So today I am speaking to the lovely and talented Miss Chrys Columbine, who is many things, but probably best known as a world-renowned burlesque performer. So, hi Chris, how you doing?
Hi John, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. Very well. So
Good.
I'll jump straight in. So,
Sure.
how and why burlesque? What attracted you to that scene? How did you get involved with it? And where does the scene itself originate from?
Well, believe it or not, burlesque starts in 16th, 17th century Italian opera.
Wow.
And the word burlesca, is an Italian word for joke, parody. And there were two types of operas generally. There was comic opera and opera seria, which was more serious, tragedy, more kind of serious stories. Now, the burlesque bit of an opera would be like a comedy scene. So it would have jokes and it would have funny costumes. It would have people doing basically gimmicks, and the songs itself would be quite funny, a bit parodying. So burlesque itself means a parody,
Right.
and the whole point of it was it's a parody of the high arts. And obviously it thrived during the Prohibition era in the 1920s in Weimar, Germany. Obviously all the artists were generally skilled in dance, music, song, anything theatrical. But every time they performed their acts, it would be slightly tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
So burlesque itself is a tongue-in-cheek art form. It's a parody of the high arts. And I got into it because I've always been really enamored by old style retro glamour since I was a child. I used to watch all those old films. I was a real fan of silver screen actresses like Audrey Hepburn and Vivian Leigh and Judy Garland. And when the burlesque revival started, I picked it up and I was like, wow, there's something that can be done to actually relive that era and make something of a living out of it. And that's how it all started, really.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, I'm going to come back to the point in a moment, but just picking up on a couple of the things that you said there.
Sure.
In regards to the tongue-in-cheek with the high art, I love that. I'm a huge music fan, as you well know, and I'm into all sorts of music. But some of my favourite bands of all time, bands like Faith No More and System of a Down on the rock side, and Elvis Costello, people like that, and they're really, really great musicians, and they're great at what they do. But they incorporate that little bit of tongue-in-cheek and that little bit of
a little bit of showmanship. Say.
And also even like the not taking themselves overly seriously, and there's just something very, I don't know, refreshing about that, and
very genuine and enjoyable.
There you go.
Because at the end of the day, it's entertainment. You're supposed to be enjoying what you do, and like you say, not taking yourself too seriously.
And in regards to those classic movies as well, it's like I'm not like an aficionado or anything, but I love film and TV. Obviously, I'm involved in it myself, massive fan all my life. And there's something about those old, really old style movies, and they have a massively larger than life quality. And I don't know if something is to do with them being in black and white, because your mind kind of fills in so much more. Do you know what I mean? But I can't really put my finger on it, but they definitely have that sort of hyper real kind of larger.
That sort of fantasy, epic quality.
And that's something that you're trying to sort of reproduce with the burlesque, really, isn't it? Again, I mean, it's like you say.
Well, burlesque is really about creating a larger than life show on stage, and often people that haven't necessarily had the chance to be exposed to it have often asked me, well, is it basically striptease? Is it similar to stripping? And it's like, well, obviously there's striptease involved, but the whole point of a burlesque show is to create something that's fantasy, larger than life, that people can just escape into for a few minutes, and then think about it and be wowed by the glitz, the glamour, and the unrealness of it.
It's pure entertainment for entertainment's sake, basically. Yeah.
Exactly.
So this channel's about everything extreme, and burlesque more than qualifies. Okay, but you've really sort of taken your art form to, you really pushed the boundaries with your art form. And tell me a little bit about your trip to the Middle East and how you came to be walking around in Beirut in not much more than one of your performance outfits, because that is pretty extreme. You wouldn't catch me walking in Beirut in a flat jacket, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't really believe in doing things by half.
No.
That's never really been, that's never really been my thing in life. So I had a lot of close connections with the Middle East for a few years, and I lived temporarily in Dubai and had very dear friends there and in Lebanon. And it was my dream to bring a burlesque show to the Middle East. Obviously, for many reasons, there are parts of it that are quite repressed, but then if you think about it, a lot has come from the Middle East. You have belly dancing, you have all that amazing fashion, fabrics. The women really take pride in their beauty and their glamour, and I just thought burlesque would be something that would probably make a lot of people happy and wowed if done in the right way. So try to do what I can in Dubai. There's all these kind of laws, so I didn't get too far, apart from a show with a piano and a doll that was dressed up as me, but that's another story. So Lebanon was once considered the Paris of the Middle East. Before, obviously, the wars, the Moulin Rouge and Crazy Horse did make an appearance at the Casino du Liban, which is where I did my show. When I had the idea to take a show to the Middle East, I thought Lebanon would be the ideal place. And it's a very much a melting point part of the world where East meets West. The Lebanese, they're incredibly open-minded, cultured people. They're very warm, they're very embracing. So when I went over there, just randomly, I was sightseeing and tweeted, and this British journalist picked me up on Twitter. Apparently she was a burlesque fan. She was working for the Daily Star, which is the main English-speaking newspaper in Lebanon. And she was like, oh, wow, are you doing a show here? And I was like, well, no, but I'm planning on. She was like, we've got to meet up. We've got to do an interview. And it kind of just happened from there, really. We had a chat, and she arranged the photographer to come down. And I was like, oh, what the hell? Why don't I get made up and dressed up in one of my signature outfits? And before I know it, I was just parading down the streets of Hamra, stopping traffic with my giant emerald green fans and a 20-inch corset and a bustle and not too much else. So ended up on the front cover of the Daily
I'm not
Star.
surprised.
It wasn't something I was expecting, but
I don't think
guess
anyone would have been expecting that,
I was
Chris, to be fair.
surprised, but not, because that's just the kind of mental crap that I would do. So.
Yeah, you definitely don't do things by half. You definitely qualify on the extreme side, son. So I'm going to change the tack slightly, although they still relate to burlesque performance, because it's got a piano in the background there, and you are actually a classically trained pianist. So as well as, I know you incorporate the piano into your burlesque routine, but also you've done some stuff musically that's really interesting as well. So tell us quickly, briefly, a little bit about how you incorporate the piano into the burlesque, but also tell us about your time. You were a temporary touring member of a really influential goth band called Nosferatu for a while, weren't you? That's fascinating.
Yeah, that again came as a surprise. It was I was introduced to them via a B-movie actress called Eileen Daly. She did a lot of vampire films. She had that very classic vampiric beauty, the black hair, crystal blue eyes, pale skin, and I was friends with her for quite a few years, and she introduced me to Nosferatu. They just online. I didn't even know she had done that, but they emailed me out the blue saying, well, we're back on tour for a bit, on a European tour. Would you like to join the band? And I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Touring with her. And I think that, of all the shows I've done and of all the amazing international stages I've performed in front of thousands of people, there still isn't anything quite like performing with a band on stage and seeing thousands of people mouthing the words to the songs. That, can be, you know, in a good way, a little bit of a head fuck, because you're like, oh wow, like I didn't realise how big Nosferatu were. I'd heard of them, but I must admit I hadn't really heard many of their songs. When I listened to them, I thought, this is amazing. I mean, the great thing about a lot of goth music and black metal is that a lot of the influences are quite, the harmonies are quite classical. So yeah, so it's very easy for me to be able to incorporate all the piano stuff that I love and chord progressions and all the frilly bits, if you like, the technical bits.
Definitely.
So yeah, my experience with them, touring with them in 2006, yeah, was just amazing. There's been nothing quite like it.
So how did that compare to your burlesque performances? It's got to be a different kind of connection with an audience. It's both live performance. In both cases, you're trying to elicit a response from an audience. But how did that sort of measure up? Was it? I mean, it's obviously a different high. I mean,
yeah, I mean the burlesque, I don't get me wrong, that too is nothing like anything else. But it's very much, even when you're performing in a theatre and you're quite a bit back from the audience, or if you're in an intimate setting, there's that connection you've got to have with the audience. You've got to make eye contact with them. You've got to slightly flirt with them a little bit. Again, very tongue-in-cheek. It's not sexual. It's just more fun. And it's cheeky. I would say naughty but nice.
Yeah.
And it is definitely a lot of fun, especially when I think the majority of the time you're looking, the women are really engaging with you, and they don't care, and their husbands are kind of going like that and looking at the wife and looking at you, and
that works. Oh, well,
yeah.
that's cool. So, okay, we've chatted a little bit about music, and you've confessed to me that at heart you're a total rock chick. Obviously, the Nosferatu experience and everything.
Yeah.
So, what are some of your favourite bands and artists, and have they influenced you as a performer, either as a musician directly or in terms of your burlesque performance? Because obviously, there's a long history of sort of risque stage performance associated with rock and roll, heavy metal, that kind of thing. Yeah, the light shows of your Hawkwind and your Pink Floyd. Then you got your shock rock, your Alice Cooper, very theatrical stage shows with bit of
I do Alice Cooper.
Yeah, and then you got later on you got stuff these days. You got Slipknot, Rammstein, all of them have a visual element on stage. So, in short, have any of them influenced you? How have they influenced you?
Absolutely. I mean, even as a youth, I'm talking about as an 11, 12-year-old, obviously artists like Freddie Mercury and David Bowie massively influenced me, because they're very theatrical, they're seriously talented, gifted musicians in their own right, yet they put on these unforgettable shows, the characters they create for themselves, and the fact that they changed with the times. They didn't just stay stuck in where they are, or they didn't just think, well, I am who I am, I'm David Bowie or whatever. Like, he constantly reinvented himself, as did Freddie Mercury. And you're right, bands like, obviously, classics like seeing Guns N' Roses, one of my first ever concerts. System of a Down, you've mentioned, another favourite of mine. I think the fact that they're also of Armenian origin, and they've incorporated a lot of their traditional music into that, amazing compilation of distorted guitars. You can tell that Slipknot, with the fact that they, for God knows how many first few years, you didn't even have a clue what they looked like, because obviously that's the whole point. They wanted you to see them as a band, as an entity, and what was behind the mask wasn't necessarily relevant.
Absolutely. All about the art form, not about the personality. Well, you didn't know.
Absolutely. Well, obviously the personality
came through, but not the person, not the actual visual, which was cool. It was a cool disconnect. So, obviously, you've got another shock rocker I've got to mention, with you being into your burlesque and things. Marilyn Manson, obviously, he's got a long-standing association with some people on tees. She's widely credited with bringing burlesque back into vogue, into the spotlight. So, what I was going to say, have you incorporated any of those sort of darker aspects, or could you, or would you consider doing so in the future with your stage shows? Could we see a sort of a more gothic-y, even shocky kind of a
Well,
vibe?
possibly. I mean, for years I did a Halloween show, which was I took on the Freddy Krueger persona, like a female Freddy Krueger. So that was very gory and quite bloody and involved dolls with bloods and, you know, knife fingers. But obviously, my signature being the fact that I'm the only one that plays classical piano and performs the striptease simultaneously, I'm creating one or two new piano shows, and one of them I'm planning on using two pianos, and I'm going to flip between the two.
So you are a lady of many talents, and as well as the piano and the burlesque and everything else, you're also a trained martial artist. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I started training with Phoenix Karate, it's called now. It's a club that's been going for years since I was a child, and my sensei's trained all kinds of people, actors as well, from Hugh Laurie to Brad Pitt. He's amazing. I did 3 years of training with him as a kid, had a long break, obviously got slightly involved in the showbiz world and touring and not being in one place for more than about 2 months at a time. And when I came back in 2016 and knew that I was going to be in London for a while, got in contact with him and started training with him again, and haven't really looked back. I think that for me, martial arts is not just about being the strongest and physically fittest. It's obviously it's an art form, but it's about what it can do to your mind, how in any situation you can be present and you can be calm and you can assess a situation and deal with it productively.
Absolutely.
That's the part of the martial arts that I'm also very interested in, and hopefully will be. It's a lifelong process, isn't it, of inner peace and strength.
Well, that's a little bit. I mean, my channel is driving lessons from a journeyman. Obviously, tongue in cheek there.
Yeah.
Well, I've explained that on another tape. But yeah, it's a lifelong journey, and in that respect, yeah, 100%. And also in terms of um, the um, the broader application, really, that's what a lot of the vlogs on the channel are about. The broader application of the martial arts and how I personally have built sort of an effective internal system to cope with life, the universe, and everything through the martial arts themselves, being present in the moment, um, you know, accepting the moment, forging on through no matter what.
Yeah.
And yeah, that kind of, as the Japanese used to say, like the indomitable spirit. But the idea is, you know, take those aspects and sort of apply them, that level of mastery and that level of sort of being present in the moment, acceptance, all of that, and applying that more broadly to your life. And it's the
Yeah,
core.
it's about having that spirit like water.
Yeah, definitely. So I've already asked about what other influences that you incorporate into your burlesque performances. And we talked about the, you know, maybe some of the influences from the shock rock and the gothic sort of theatre type stuff. But also, you were mentioning to me that you are also looking to maybe incorporate some martial arts themed stuff into
Absolutely.
it as well. Tell us a bit about that.
Okay, well, I obviously don't want to give too much of a game away,
No.
but I guess it's probably good that you've asked me about that, because now I can't get out of doing it.
Absolutely.
I've just got to get the hell on with it, really. So yeah, thanks for that. Thanks and thanks. So I've been thinking about it for quite a while, incorporating some martial arts, using creating some choreography from certain karate katas I know, and I wanted to potentially create something with a Kill Bill theme. And there have been a few, I guess, sort of latex Kill Bill start type dancers and performers and fire performers, but I want to create something really quite authentic, quite special. Obviously, the character in Kill Bill, as well, she knows she's trained, you know, in the art of the dojo, and you know, I myself, I'm half Japanese. My mother's from Japan, and I've been to Japan a few times as a kid. I didn't for years, but recently went in 2018, and I have a great connection to obviously the spirit and the spirit of the martial arts, is how the way of Japan, how they really appreciate nature, and they're very much present within within where they are at the time. And I wanted to do a Kill Bill show that incorporated more of the I guess the ways of the dojos and the spirit, rather than this flash movement orientated spectacle.
That's amazing. And I've known you a while, and I never knew about the Japanese connection. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
I'm sure I've mentioned it in the past.
No, honestly, I'd have remembered that. No, it's quite weird because I'm gonna come back on point in a second, but just I study many forms of martial arts: boxing, kickboxing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, traditional karate, and Hokkien-Do Kung Fu, which is my sensei's own term for a style that he learned in Malaya. Because he's 82 now. My sensei, Dave Rogers, one of the best martial artists I've ever worked with, still breaking 2-inch thick boards, freestanding. Like his core strength is just phenomenal at 82 years old. Just unreal. And he actually
and
was in the
obviously
military.
At that age, it becomes it's still, the mind is still as sharp as the body.
Oh, he's sharp as a razor. There's no worries. What was I going to say? Basically, Dave was in the military, and when he wasn't in sort of all-out kill or be killed jungle warfare, he eventually was allowed into the Shaolin temples, and he learned proper Shaolin Kung Fu with the monks there, because the army was sort of tasked with protecting the temples, amongst other things. Sounds like a story from a movie in itself. Like,
it really does.
I met Dave when I was 18, and Dave I would definitely credit with making the connection between the sort of the mental and the physical. And basically, Dave gave me a lot of the building blocks on which my own sort of philosophy and current coping mechanisms are based. And like I said, it's Malayan Kung Fu. Now, as far as we know, he's the only guy in the country teaching it. There was one of his other friends that was at the temple with him, but he doesn't teach. So of all the places, he ends up locally to me in Derbyshire, in the town I lived in called New Mills, tiny town. So I've been training with him since I was 18 years old, never realising I had any connection to Malaya whatsoever until I was 36. And then a friend of my mum, who was chasing the family tree, discovered a whole new branch of the family tree that we hadn't known existed. And it turns out that my mum's real mum, my blood grandmother on my mum's side, I never met her. She passed away before I was born. And unfortunately, she was suffering from serious mental illness. And she.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's a thing. But I think she passed away, as far as I understand, in an asylum. But she'd always gone on about how her mother was from overseas, but nobody ever really knew what she was on about. They thought it was the lithium talking or whatever. It wasn't really taken that seriously. But it turned out that my great-grandfather, or great-great-grandfather, had... wait a minute, let me work that out. Great-great-grandfather, yeah? I think that's right. Math's not good. A couple of generations back anyway. And he'd worked as a military policeman, and he'd worked overseas, and he had actually taken a wife, either Malayan or Chinese, but most likely Malaysian. And so my blood grandmother on my mum's side was half Malayan. And it was kind of weird, because going through school, with me doing the martial arts, a lot of the time people would sort of look at me and go, are you a bit Chinese? I'm like, no, my mum's from Wales, my dad's from Ireland, blah, blah, blah. But then, I'm 36 years old, and suddenly I find out that I've got this connection to Malaya. I've been training in Malayan Kung Fu for 18 years in a small town in the middle of Derbyshire, with possibly the only guy in the country that's teaching it. I mean, the coincidence is mind-blowing. Also, what was even further was that there was a prison in Malaya, and I'm fairly sure that my great-great-grandfather had worked there. So would my sensei, but he'd have been there like 50, 60 years later. But it was mind-blowing stuff. So I'm sorry, just brought the Japanese connection up.
So it's almost like you're a throwback, but it's come out within your martial arts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just I don't know.
It's very strange how ancestry can manifest itself.
Yeah.
Not necessarily through your obvious genetics or physical traits, but you know, it doesn't leave you, does it?
No, it doesn't. And yeah, and there was another aside to that story. My mum had two cousins she didn't know about. She's met up with them, and one of her cousins was actually married and living about 40 minutes down the road from us in Mansfield, just outside of Nottingham. And they had
Oh
two
wow.
sons the same age as me and my brother, who both did extreme sports and martial arts. It was just so. There's an aside
What a
tangent.
story. Yeah, you definitely have to do a whole yeah,
I'll do
a
a
little
vlog
bit
on
of
that. We'll go into
yeah,
that in
you
more
have to.
detail. I'll get the details properly and do it. But to finish with, I would like to come back to your good self. And you've been working a lot with me and my fight team recently, doing screen fight.
Yeah, been very grateful for that.
Well, you're more than welcome. Pleasure having you there. You know, and we did have some projects lined up, which will still go ahead as and when things get to normal, and hopefully you can still be involved in those. Because you know, I'm very confident that you are going to fulfill your yet another aspiration of becoming an on-screen action heroine, and I've got every confidence that you will.
And there you've just put it out there, so I can't fail, can I? Thanks for that again.
No pressure.
You're quite good at this, aren't you?
I am.
Just not letting me get out and do things that I want to do, because now it's out there. I have to.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
No excuses.
No, hell no. So look, I don't think you've got anything to worry about as from an instructor's and an objective point of view. And
thank you.
We'll see much more of you. And what I was going to say, if you could choose, tell me a little bit to finish with. Tell me a little bit about your favourite female action heroes, and if you could choose any role to play, what would it be, or what would it be similar to?
Okay, well, I guess from childhood, don't take this too seriously, because obviously I'm talking about the ambitions of a 7-year-old. Yeah, I was really into She-Ra, Princess of Power.
Awesome.
For all kinds of obvious reasons, and Shitara from the Thundercats. I remember Winter Power as well. But no, seriously, cartoons aside, and being a bit more practical here, obviously I love Beatrix Kiddo, Uma Thurman's character in Kill Bill. How it's just more, I love a story where someone manages to almost fight back and avenge themselves from nothing. I mean, she was pretty much dead, and then and worse than that, her unborn child dies as well, and then she just comes out of nowhere and basically one by one exterminates all these people that almost killed her and her child. That, I think, like, who has that kind of courage? But then if you think about it, if we were in that situation, we probably somehow all have it in us, to actually go on that life path if we're really kicked down that badly. And I just really admire that kind of strength. I'm not saying that if you've been done wrong, you should go out and kill people. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it's that, when you get kicked down, you get back up and you fight, however form that fight might take place.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's the theme of it.
I find that story very touching. Even it's quite emotional. It's emotionally involving. Same with, I guess, quite a recent one. Well, in the last 2 years that I've really gotten into is Jessica Jones. Again, I do like a little bit of a start-off sob story. Her parents get killed. She's this little orphan, and she gains these powers from the car crash. It's a little bit like Spider-Man, isn't it? She gains some kind of powers from this car crash that makes her superhuman, and this little girl with this strength of a titan. And she's plus I quite like the fact that she's really talented private investigator, and it's that someone that's quite diminutive, and that you could, I guess, you could imagine being easily picked on will actually just knock you out in a split second. Because I think that's the thing. I can't, in real life, I can't stand bullies. I can't stand people that actually use their power to threaten other people. And I think that's the whole point, I guess. Part of the attraction of a superhero is that they are very honourable people. They're very they have respect for others. You know, they would protect others that couldn't really protect themselves, and obviously, you know, and do it in the most honourable but the most kick-ass way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those common themes with the martial arts. I mean, also, I'm a huge fan of classic Hong Kong cinema. I'll be talking about that in other interviews and vlogs and things. But that sort of theme of self-improvement and overcoming extreme adversity, that is like the staple of a lot of classic martial arts movies. Because at the end of the day, as we sort of alluded to before, that is the theme of martial art. Martial art to me is basically alchemy, because it's an art form, but you're taking the worst crap in the universe in terms of physical violence, the most vile, you know, aspects of life. That's your subject matter, and then from that, you know, you refine that, you turn it into an art form. There are all sorts of positive
subject matter, oppression, you know, and the evil involved, the evil that's often involved that you have to fight against is of a superhuman level as well. It's often demonic. And it takes someone with real strength to actually fight against that and protect other people as well that can't necessarily protect themselves.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely down with all that. So, Chrys.
So, but to answer your last question about who would I play?
Yes.
Right, I've got to draw your attention, if I can do this, right, see that? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Right, I got that in transit at Hong Kong airport, right? On my way back from Japan, actually, you see, there's Deadpool, Deadpool dog, and Lady Deadpool, right? That's who I would play.
That's amazing. That's an amazing.
Yeah, so like, guys, if you are out there, whoever's going to make it, right? Lady Deadpool, hello.
You're the lady. You are Lady Deadpool, absolutely.
Yeah, never mind the auditions. I am Lady Deadpool.
That's it, mate. That is what we need to hear. I would definitely want to see that. And well, look, we'll wrap that up there. It's been absolutely fantastic speaking to you as always.
Thank you, John.
Have you on again?
Great talking to you as well. Yeah, I can't wait till I can actually spar with you as well again, and all, you know, and all the awesome guys and girls at the seminar. I'm missing my gym. I'm missing my pupils. I'm definitely missing the seminars. We're going to do some big stuff when we get back. Yeah, soon. It's just it's, you know, it's not a question. It's just a question of waiting. At some point, this will all be over, and we'll all see each other and spar with each other on the other side. Oh, 100%, Chrys, 100%. So, thank you very much for your time. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording now. If you just bear with me, we'll do a little bit of a wrap up afterwards. So one more time, Chrys, thank you so much for your time. It's been fascinating. Thank you so much, John. Great speaking to you. Always, Chrys. Cheers.